If you need help with addiction and don't know where to go, you can call the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration 24 hours a day. The number is 1-800-662-HELP or 1-800-662-4357. They work around the clock and will help you find what you need.
Hello, everybody. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the Lifeboat Crew. It is good to see you. Tell you what, last night's live feed was absolutely amazing. If you were on it, thank you. The comment section, the live chat was alive. It really was. Like very few times that we've done this, and we've done a lot of them, but that one was probably the best that we've done, and that feedback has come from a lot of the people on the crew. So that's not just my personal opinion on that. That's basically from everybody that weighed in. So that's a pretty cool thing. You know what are we doing here, people? Sorry, but all right, sorry. I was hoping to get my live chat. That's all right. A little less squirreling today. So yesterday we talked about sugar, people. Spent a decent amount of time talking about what it can do to the body. And it goes all the way from obesity to heart disease to cancer, dementia, Alzheimer's, and big time inflammation. All of these things are, awful. And, the effects of sugar on the body is something that there's not too many people left on the planet that want to debate this unless they happen to work for the Sugar Association. But the rest of the world has come to realize that sugar, especially added sugar, is really one of the most dangerous things right now going for human beings on the planet. As I mentioned last night, the kids born right now are the first generation. They're not expected to have a lifespan longer than their parents. And toward the end of last night's live feed, we touched on children. The fact that the majority of sugar these days is being directly marketed to our kids. There was some talk about Red, White, and You. There was talk about the most popular soda brand on the planet and exactly what they're doing. Oh, people, and you know what? Yesterday's live feed had a ton of people on it. I think one of the reasons was you people sharing the live feed right at the beginning. I want to thank everybody that did that. You really are doing an awful lot for the boat. And it doesn't go unnoticed. We really do appreciate everything you're doing. Mark and I we couldn't be any happier with the effort that you people put in. You certainly put in as much time and effort as we do, and that's fairly impressive. People, before I get rolling, we talked about that company, the Red, White, and Blue. Now, because of the magical background of the boat here, as I mentioned on this morning's ad, this is not a real boat. On this morning's video, I added the fact that, yeah, this is, believe it or not, this is just sort of special effects, which is why you see my hand occasionally disappear. Okay, so hopefully this bag will not disappear. Let me see what I can do here. Does that work? Yeah, no. Okay. People, let's see if we can do it this way. Do you see this bag of sugar? This here is what is in a 12-ounce can of Coca-Cola. If you could feel the weight on this, I actually went and weighed this out. The math done by Siri. The haters will be saying that I was waving around a bag of white powder, but that is the amount of sugar that is in a 12-ounce can of Coca-Cola, which is astounding if you think about it. And today you're going to hear an awful lot about some of the differences between sugar and high fructose corn syrup. You're also going to hear about the effects that sugar has on our children, because the effects that they're having on our kids really are a whole lot different than the effects that they're having on us. And when you start to hear some of the things that Coke and products like it that are so high in sugar and in high fructose corn syrup, what it can do to our children, people, I think it's going to repulse you. I really do. And we're going to talk about, parents who try to do the right thing. A lot of parents across the country will say, you know what, we're done with sugary sodas. This is something that we know is bad for our kids. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to get them juice instead. We're going to go out there and get them fruit juice because you're going to do an awful lot better. People, if you had any idea the amount of sugar in the average fruit juice, when you see the word concentrate associated with different types of fruit, it literally means 9 out of 10 times sugar, like sugar taken from that particular fruit or whatever, but extracted. If you are in the sugar business right now, anywhere on the planet, but especially in the United States, you really have a PR nightmare in your hands, because the entire world is coming to realize just how foul the sugar is for our bodies and the amounts that they're putting in it. And people are really sort of beginning to take a stand. According to the Sugar Association, they recently went after a woman who wrote a book, and it was a book that sort of pulled back the curtain on all of the different problems associated with that particular organization. I'm not going to tell you the name of the book, and here's why: because everybody that brings it up basically gets sued by the Sugar Association, and what they like to do is sue. And their statement is this: there has not been sugar in soda for the last 20 years. That is their stance, because the Sugar Association of America takes a very different stance when it comes to sugar versus high fructose corn syrup. What they say is, well, that sugar is evil stuff, all that granulated stuff or whatever. They really try to get and dodge around the legalities by saying that high fructose corn syrup is in fact not sugar. People, sugar is glucose, right? And it's basically a 50-50 split of two things. It's sucrose, glucose and fructose in a 50-50 split bound together gets you the product that we know is granulated sugar. With high fructose corn syrup, you have a slightly different makeup. Obviously, with the name high fructose corn syrup, you're going to be doing a little bit more fructose than you are glucose. It's actually a 55 to 45 split. So 45% glucose, 55% fructose. But the difference is these things are already separated. So as opposed to being a molecule that your body has to break down, it's coming in there as what they call free. So the both of them are ready to be absorbed instantly into the bloodstream. It's a faster delivery method. It's one of the reasons that originally they started to go with the high fructose corn syrup. That, and back when they first started putting it in literally everything, was in the 80s. This was prior to ethanol. As they started to take corn in the US and started to make fuel out of it, right? Ethanol is just a product you can run an automobile on, but it comes right from corn. It's a way to make petroleum out of corn. Once that happened, the price of high fructose corn syrup jumped considerably, because now you had an awful lot of usage for all of that excess corn that we grow every year in the United States. But prior to that, it was dirt cheap. So they started buying it as a cheaper way to get the same effect. And what they found is the effect was actually a little bit quicker, the delivery system a little bit faster. So the up quicker and the down quicker. And that works great if you're a drug dealer, right? The drug you're selling is sugar, or the same rush that you're getting off of sugar. The faster you can get it to go up and the faster you can get it to go down, the better. If you look just now to the screen, you're going to see a list of an unbelievable amount of terms. Every single one of those there on a label means sugar. What they have learned to do is dance around. Instead of just putting sugar on there, they're going to count on the fact that if you read one of the names that you see up there on the screen, that you're not going to realize that that is a sugar product. They are literally doing everything they can to snow us, because they realize that for the better part of 30 or 40 years now, people have come to realize that added sugars are killing people. Now, the logical step might be to put less of it in the product, but instead, they're just getting really creative with how they label it so that they can continue to do what they do, because obviously they want you coming back for the products as fast as possible. And that really is the sort of the punch of high fructose corn syrup. And once you start talking about fructose in higher doses, you start to have some really serious problems inside the body. This all started in 1980. Coincidentally, the obesity outbreak in our country started in 1980. And believe it or not, there is actually, I can't blame this completely on high fructose corn syrup, because there is a lot of studies out there that basically say, in terms of weight gain, it's not a whole lot different between sugar and high fructose corn syrup. So from a scientific standpoint, they'll tell you that it's not going to make you fatter. I mean, that, I guess, on paper makes sense. But if you're running back to get more of something more often because of the delivery system, it doesn't really matter that they're both sugar. If you have to consume one of them more often to get the same effect, it's going to cause obesity. But if you got really good lawyers and you're the people who are spending more than 10% of your budget every year on science projects, for lack of a better way to put it, right? These are experiments that are tailor-made with only one outcome. If those do not come out with that outcome, well, they just don't bother printing it. But if they can crank out a study that says that these things aren't, in fact, as deadly as they say they are, well, then they're going to end up being printed everywhere all over the world. But 10% of their budget. People start to think about how much money is spent on all sugary additives. 10% of that budget is cranking out. They do studies for the dental, so that people, when you were a kid, mom said, you keep eating all of this candy, your teeth are going to rot out of your head, right? Well, they will do studies that have nothing to do with sugar, plaque removal, all of these different things that they can try to backdoor in a new study to say that here's what you need to do so that they look like they're really going out of their way to help. It's kind of a bizarre scenario that is getting put together. But whether it is a coincidence or not, where this really gets dicey, where this really is going to make you sick to your stomach, is when you start looking at what the effects of these things are on kids. Because it is a completely different thing when you start looking at the high fructose corn syrup in particular and the effect that it has on children. There was a study done in the U.S. and it's with the University of South Carolina, which found hyperactive kids who consumed large amounts of high fructose corn syrup ended up being more destructive and reckless in their behavior. This is obviously, we've seen this with our kids, right? You really get them hopped up. They get really sugary and, they tend to get a little bit more wild. I don't think this is a study that really gets people's attention. But here's the problem. Parents now are feeding their kids all of this garbage, and the sugar is in literally everything, right? If you buy ding dongs, right, or you buy ho-hos, you got to assume there's an awful lot of sugar in it. But if you're buying soup or crackers or salad dressing or taco sauce or taco seasoning, it's in everything, people. So we're giving our kids this unbelievable amount of high fructose corn syrup all the time. And what do? They bounce off the walls. And you know where this is going, right? What does the medical community say? Your child needs drugs. Your child needs Ritalin or Adderall or Dexedrine, or God forbid, if they're really out there, Digoxin. But those are the drugs that are used most commonly to treat ADHD. Now, there are some new ones that have come out that are not amphetamine based, but for the most part, what they do is they give your kids speed. And I'm not looking down my nose at parents who have given their kids Ritalin. I did. I didn't know any better. I really didn't. Hindsight being 2020, I don't know if my son really had ADHD or whether I just was really messing up with his diet. Maybe I just was a rotten dad, and the food that I was feeding him was why he was bouncing off of the wall. But teachers call and complain, and the next thing you know, you've got him at a specialist who's writing you a prescription to give your kids speed. It's a terrifying circle, but it starts with bad diet. And there is a lot of science out there, people, an awful lot of science that say if you could control your kid's diet, that a lot of these kids who are being diagnosed with ADHD don't need the medication that they're being put on. And if I had a show of hands right now on the boat of people whose first exposure to drugs was Ritalin, people, it's staggering. As a guy that has abused everything on the planet, I've snorted Ritalin. I snorted it for a while. Like, I had access to it. It was easy to get, and I snorted it. It's like poor man's cocaine. It wires you out for a brief period of time. You go back, you snort more. It's got all of the same kind of attributes as snorting coke. But this is something that we're intentionally giving to our 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds. By the time they're getting to 9, 10, and 11, Ritalin's not working, and we're moving on to Adderall. By the time they're sophomores in high school, the Adderall isn't doing the trick anymore. And now you're going to Dexedrine, which is just really heavy duty speed in a pill and a time release version. But can you see where this is insidious as hell? Sugar is causing us to misdiagnose kids with disorders that they may not have. And I'm not saying, people, that there aren't a ton of kids with ADHD. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is this isn't taken into consideration very often when the doctor whips out the prescription pad. I mean, those doctors, for lack of a better way to look at it, for all intents and purposes, are drug dealers, right? The doctors who deal specifically with this write prescriptions all day long for those drugs. That's how they treat this. When your child comes in, they're predisposed to thinking, well, we're going to put them on Ritalin and see what happens. It's frightening. It really is. It's frightening. But this is the cycle that so many parents and so many kids are finding themselves in. And here's the deal, people. If that was the end of the road, if that was where this ended, we could spend the night being really depressed, right? This is pretty rotten stuff. But that's not even scratching the surface of how jacked up all of this is. So it gets uglier. It gets much worse. According to the Washington Post, a study conducted at the Institute for Agricultural Trade identified detectable levels of mercury in 9 out of 20 samples of commercial high fructose corn syrup. People, this ain't the National Enquirer, right? This isn't a conspiracy theory. This isn't anything that that is ridiculous. This is a study conducted by a very reputable organization. The Institute for Agricultural Trade identified, again, detectable levels of mercury in 9 out of 20 samples. This was in the Washington Post. Do you have any idea what mercury does to a human being? 9 out of 20 samples? I'm not a mathematician, but isn't that pretty close to 50% mark? Can I get a thumbs up? Isn't that in the 50% range? I mean, that's not right. This is something that is real, people. You can go out and do the research on this. Read the article. I did. It's terrifying. You randomly grab 20 samples and 9 of them, damn near 50% of them, have mercury in it. And when you start looking at what mercury does to anybody, but especially to kids, you start getting memory problems. You start getting a language and fine motor skills are a problem. Your attention is the biggest thing that takes a hit. So now where are we? Now we got kids who are already having hyperactivity problems because of what they're ingesting with all the high fructose corn syrup. But half of it has got mercury in it. So now they're having attention problems. You seeing where this is going? Now we're taking them to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, they don't pay attention in class, and they bounce off the walls, and they're always causing trouble. And it's almost, getting to the point where it's destructive. You can read down these studies. And what we're doing is feeding our kids things that create the symptoms of ADHD constantly. And, you can say, well, I'm going to cut soda out. People, if this is a situation where you have to cut out added sugar, because if they're adding sugar, it's probably coming from high fructose corn syrup. It's the cheapest and the fastest and the lowest common denominator for what all of these food manufacturers are using. I mean, if you're that company, you're not going for the most expensive product. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? You're going to go with the bulk cheapest that you can get your hands on. 9 out of 10 samples of which have mercury in it. Now, all of those symptoms that I just talked about, I mean, that's bad. Those are symptoms. But what it really does is it leads to brain damage and damage to the central nervous system. For you Alice in Wonderland fans, right? Mad as a hatter. That phrase came because hatters used to treat felt with mercury. Of course, at the time, they didn't realize what mercury did to individuals when they were exposed to it. But when they would say mad as a hatter, it was because the central nervous system would get decimated by all of the mercury that these people handled. And they would have the shakes, and they would have the inability to finish sentences, and they looked mad. It was a play on that whole industry when Lewis Carroll wrote that book. But this is something we are exposing our kids to on a regular basis. Again, not the National Enquirer. This isn't coast to coast FM or AM or whatever it is. We're talking about mainstream big newspapers and studies done by universities and studies done by really reputable agencies. I'm guessing that, like me, you didn't know this, right? Nobody's screaming about this. And do you know why they're not? Because the people who have a vested interest in pushing this stuff out have an unlimited budget and an army of lawyers. For real. This is ugly, and this is our future. This is our kids. I wonder why that their life expectancy isn't going to be as long as ours. This has got to be a wake-up call, people. This has got to be a wake-up call. We're talking about some really, really ugly stuff here. Now, again, if this was the end of it, but corn happens to be among the most allergenic foods on the planet. There are more people who have allergies to corn and corn products than just about anything else. Most of them, by the way, undiagnosed, because they're not severe enough where you're going into anaphylactic shock, but it causes problems for a great number of people. And if the problem isn't big enough, then you don't take your kid in to have them tested to see what the allergy is, because it's really just not that obvious. But among the allergic reactions, what you get are fatigue, crying, irritability, anxiety, night walking, crankiness. Once again, a whole host of symptoms that at a very young age, put that together with the hyperactivity, put that together with the inability to concentrate, and you got a kid that looks like he needs medication. Every single year, the number of prescriptions being written for ADHD goes up. And we believe, as a country, even the medical community believes that this is just something that is becoming more prevalent. For whatever reason, each generation there seems to be a lot more people who are hyperactive. There are a lot more people who have attention deficit disorder. I mean, holy mackerel. No one has stepped back and said, hey, maybe it's what we're feeding them. I mean, there are people out there screaming exactly what I'm screaming right now. If they weren't, I wouldn't be talking about this. I didn't do the research myself. I just went and found the research. But I'm telling you, people, you can read on this. This is not something that was difficult. This isn't a deep dive. You start doing any kind of research on high fructose corn syrup, and you are going to read astounding amounts of studies on this, and none of them are good. There's not a study out there that says, what you need is to give your kids some more high fructose corn syrup. Like, that study does not exist. Now, like any other sugar, like anything else, if you can keep this to really, really small amounts, granted, it might not be the greatest thing in the world to have in their diet, but the life-threatening stuff that we're talking about doesn't really start to become an issue until you start talking about really giving them a lot of it. Unfortunately, what are you going to feed them if you're giving them processed foods? If you're buying them snacks, there are 24 grams of sugar in a Snickers bar. That's 4 grams shy of an ounce, right? That's an 8-ball shy of an ounce, a little over an 8-ball. The point being, there's a ton of sugar in just about everything, people. And you're lucky if it's sugar. Even if it's sugar, it's refined and it's not good for you. It's the same, fast into the body. It's still causing type 2 diabetes. It's still causing dementia. It's still causing, possible Alzheimer's, all of these different things, cancer, inflammation, all of the different things that we talked about yesterday. But this stuff here, this is our kids. And we wonder why obesity is an epidemic among children, because everybody who manufactures food is packing it with high fructose corn syrup and other sweeteners because it does a couple of things. It makes the kids feel good. They ask for more of it. It also helps a great deal with texture. I'm not exactly sure why, but every single article I read said that children, especially the younger kids, are very susceptible and very uncomfortable with certain textures of food. And one of the reasons that high fructose corn syrup is more popular than sugar is it does something with the ability to make the texture more pleasing to kids. More pleasing to kids. This is evil, man. It really is. It's evil. And then what they do is they advertise the ever-loving snot out of it, and they do it with cartoons. If you don't see how insidious this is, then maybe you're still in the life, right? Maybe you're high as hell. But if you're sitting and listening to this with any kind of a sort of a sober outlook, this is terrifying stuff. I can't tell you how uncomfortable, all of the research I did on this was. I sat there and got depressed. I really did. This is the world that our kids are growing up in. The good news, people, is this. God still makes food that doesn't have any of this crap in it, right? They're called fruits, vegetables, right? Grains. Now, you can't get fooled by things that you think are good. Like when I was a kid, granola bars, great for you, right? You can't go wrong with granola bars. The amount of added sugar in the average granola bar now is staggering. It really is. It's staggering. They put chocolate, they put all of the different stuff in it to make it more tasty. You lose all of the benefit. How about yogurt? You remember when like yogurt was considered almost a health food? There's one company, Chobani, the amount of sugar in that particular yogurt, I don't know how they get a spoon in. I mean, I'm not kidding you. It's got to be almost like a small bucket of sand. The amount of granulated sugar that is going into this stuff, I don't know how they even get it to break down. But the amounts, people, are staggering, and it gets uglier. In 2013, Time magazine did an article that said artificial colors and preservatives also have the exact same effect. They mirror the effects that I just mentioned. All of them, literally. People, you think any one of those things I was just mentioning, any of those snack foods, any of those candy bars, any of those sodas don't have artificial colors, sweeteners, preservatives, all of those things do the exact same thing. So it's a cocktail of this foulness. If it was just high fructose corn syrup and we got lucky and you got the batch that didn't have mercury in it, we would be pretty bad off. But then you throw on top of that all of the other chemicals that they're throwing into this stuff to make it look pretty or to make it last on the shelf for 4 years. And we are putting a cocktail together that is ensuring that our kids aren't going to live as long as we do. But if they do, they're going to be overweight, their attention isn't going to be good, and they are going to be prone to violence. The next study, a 2001 article published in a publication, believe it or not, called Injury Prevention. This is a medical periodical. But they reported a significant link between sugary sodas and violence. Kids who were consuming more than 5 cans of soda a day were 9 to 15% more likely to carry a weapon and have reports of attacking family members, right? I mean, granted, 5 cans of soda, you remember this bag I just held up? Huh? About 5 times that much sugar. We're talking about 1/4 pound of sugar a day. You're drinking 5, I'm not kidding, right? You're drinking 5 sodas a day. You've got 1/4 pound of sugar. Oh boy, right? This is ugly, people. I'm telling you, this is ugly. 9 to 15% more likely to carry a weapon, right? Or to be more aggressive toward peers or attack family members. Now, we're not taking into account that all of these, almost across the board, have caffeine in it, right? I'm not gonna go off on caffeine. I'm still addicted to caffeine. You know, that's something that's a part of my life every single day. I know a whole lot about consuming caffeine, but 5 cans of soda a day, I'm telling you people, 1 can of soda a day, you're getting about 4 to 5 times more added sugar in a can of Coke than you're supposed to have all day long. Keeping in mind that everything else you're buying, right? Have something healthy, right? We'll just have a salad. Well, the salad dressing that you're putting on there has got added sugar in it. I mean, you're going to have a very difficult time finding one that doesn't. They add it to everything. And you really got to almost become a detective to figure out exactly how they're doing it. Because they are getting so creative with the labeling. They're getting so creative in everything that they do to make us believe that you're looking at something healthy. It's insidious, people. It really is. Now, the good news is twofold, right? Number one, that's pretty much the end of the ugly, with the exception of marketing. And people, I could do the next 2 hours talking about marketing, but I don't have to, because there's nobody here that doesn't remember everything from our childhood, right? Captain Crunch. Think of all of the characters that were part of our youth, right? Tony the Tiger. That all of these cartoon characters that were beloved parts of our youth are slinging ungodly amounts of sugar to the kids. There isn't, I mean, it's really difficult to come across a breakfast cereal of any kind that isn't just a bowl of sugar. but some obviously jump out more than others. And I still eat a lot of cereal. I'm not going to lie to you. I've got Lucky Charms in my cupboard. But if you read the back of a bag of Lucky Charms and realize the amount of sugar in those, I remember growing up, they would say a healthy part of your morning breakfast. Holy crap. What it is not is a healthy part of anything, but that's part of the good news, right? The good news is I'm done talking about this. I honestly feel better having this part over. The other good news, again, is this. There are more books being written right now on how to avoid this. There are more publications. There are more websites. It was astounding to me how many people are out there for a free lifeline. Not trying to market crap to you, not trying to do anything. I'm talking about big universities. I'm talking about doctors who do this for free that will tell you everything you need to know to stop this process in its tracks. And a lot of the sites that you're going to go to are going to tell you how to do, like Mark was talking about yesterday, not pulling the e-brake on this. Because unfortunately, most of us as parents have been probably doing this wrong for a while. So you kind of want to not cold turkey it, for lack of a better way to put it. You kind of want to start substituting healthy things in for what we've been doing until we can get to the point where basically we're going to remove all of that. And then at that point, once you get to a juncture where you're feeding your kid a healthy diet, fruits, vegetables, grains, granola that doesn't have tons of sugar in it, the kind of things that you can be happy with your kid eating. When you get to that point, if your kid goes to a birthday party and pounds down 2 pieces of cake, it's a non-issue. They say that cheating is not really a bad thing. The problem is daily in this country, nobody is doing what is supposed to be done. Everybody in this country is getting double, triple, quadruple. I was going through the comment section from last night's show because it was awesome, right? And some of the things that people were saying, there were guys talking about drinking 2 or 3 liters of Coca-Cola a day. That bag I held up is a 12-ounce can. If you're drinking 2 liters or 3 liters of Coca-Cola a day, please, for the love of God, stop. I mean, please, what you're doing to yourself is amazing. If you're always sore, there's a reason for that. You've got inflammation in your joints, you got inflammation in your organs. Where this inflammation takes place is everywhere, people. You can literally get inflammation of the brain. When you start doing a deep dive, and I encourage you, people, because I would have to do a 9-hour live feed and I would have to do it twice. I'm skimming through, right? And I'm taking notes and I'm looking for things with certain studies that jump out at me. But the number of people who literally almost killed themselves by drinking soda, I could read you story after story after story and do hours of it. There are stories all over the internet of people that almost drank themselves to death with soda. And we've got a guy on the crew, right, who has spoken many times about how once he found the lifeboat, he cut energy drinks out of his life. And what the damage that he did to his kidneys through them. Again, energy drinks are another one that forget the juice that they're adding in there to make you feel like you got energy. Just the amounts of sugar that they're putting in them. Forget it. If you just took the caffeine and sugar, it's ugly. But then you got guarine and taurine and ginseng. And I mean, what else could we give them to sort of get them hopped up? And I'll tell you, people, I've talked about this before numerous times, but all of this is a training ground for what? Think about it. This is a training ground for drug addiction. Don't kid yourself. Well, it should not surprise anybody that each generation is having more and more people addicted to drugs. They already have jumped the track. Their brain has already learned that the reward center is going to reward you for doing the wrong thing. That's already happening with sugar to everybody. So when you start to put drugs into the body, that's a process that the brain's already kind of used to. Oh, cool. Right? We're doing something else that's bad for us. Let's tell them this is a good thing. It really is not a shock. And our kids look at the energy drinks, right? 5-hour energy, this and that. Think about the concepts of what we teach our kids. Are you feeling a little low? Drink this. Need a little bit more energy? Drink this. Eat that. Right? This is a very, very unhealthy thing that we are doing to the next generation. Is that really that far from, well, I got to go to work, I'm going to get a half a gram of meth? I mean, that may sound like a jump to you, but it's not. If you train somebody from the age of 6 that there's a way to get more energy by just drinking something, it's how far of a stretch is it that, oh, there's a better way than that, right? You can smoke this stuff and it will really give you some energy, or you can snort this thing, or you can eat that pill. We're also one of only 2 countries on the planet that allows us to advertise drugs on television. It's us in New Zealand. The rest of the world thinks that's stupid, right? Really stupid, but we do it. And the laws on that, people, the first drug that was ever advertised was Valium. And one of the most successful advertising campaigns in history, Mama's Little Helper. Truthfully, they targeted mothers, stressed out. Boy, this is just going to take one of those little yellow pills, right? Like that song by the Stones, right? Mother's Little Helper. She's not really ill, but there's a little yellow pill. Folks, our children, from the time, then the studies have been done on this. I didn't write them down. You can go and Google this as well, and it will really get your attention. But they took first graders and showed them pictures and said, do you know what this is? And kids go, Viagra or Cialis or whatever. They can identify these things because it's on television, right? One ad after another, one ad after another. By the time our kids are 14 or 15, they have been told 1 billion times that you got restless leg syndrome, you need this. You got fibromyalgia, you need this. You're not getting the sexual performance you want, you need this. And the amazing thing is, you can't go into a store and say, get me some Cialis, right? We can't write prescriptions for drugs. So what they've done is absolutely short-circuited how our medical community used to work. We used to go into a doctor and say, hey, really weird thing happens. I lay in bed at night and I feel like I can't quit moving my legs. It's keeping me up. And honestly, it's one of the most disturbing things. And the doctor talks to you and says, I think you have restless leg syndrome. Now we walk into a doctor's office and say, hey, you know what I need? Lyrica. The doctor goes, what's up? I got restless leg syndrome. And the law states that you just have to pick 1 or 2 of the side effects that you put on the ad. There could be 400 side effects, but you only have to name a couple of them. And then we as consumers start to believe that there's only a couple of them. This is a rabbit hole I could dive into and never come back out of, which I'm not going to do because it's probably 3 shows in and of itself. What I really want to do tonight, people, because of just how productive last night was, I really want to see everybody have an opportunity to sort of weigh in on this. Because again, it was about as busy a comment section as we've ever seen here on the Lifeboat. And that is something that I would definitely like to give everybody the opportunity to do again this evening. So we have come to that juncture of the show where I pass this to the other side of the glass to my friend and partner, Mark Wages. Mark, how are you, my
What's
brother?
happening, guys? Hope everybody's doing okay. Yeah, the chat is moving just as much as it was last night. It's kind of nice to see new names in there too. Had a lot of good, productive commenting going on. It wasn't something that was just kind of, just a side conversation. I mean, this is something I think that everybody is, kind of grabbing a hold of because it does affect everybody so immediate and so in your face. It's not something that you can turn away from. Like with us, with addicts, you can say, well, put him in the room over there and we'll go see him tomorrow. You ain't doing that with this subject. It's not going to happen. And I do want to stress something, though, here that, everything is truly about moderation. Me and Tommy's talked about that, and it definitely needs. That is one of the things, because, obviously you cannot eliminate this completely out of your diet. There's no way. It just doesn't, you can't do it.
Well, and they wouldn't want you to.
Right.
As a guy, they say, as a woman, they say 9 teaspoons of added sugar a day, which is a lot if you think about it, right? That's a bag of sugar.
But
they do allow for it.
And I would also say, too, there's a reason why the most successful dieting is a low carbohydrate diet. There's a reason for that. It's no sugar. I did Atkins a long time ago, and I'm not advocating for nothing. Everybody needs to do what they need to do. Like we said before, we're not, we don't have any kind of degrees or anything like that. We're just out here living life with you guys, and I can just share what I've been through. And I lost 80 pounds in oh gosh, it was only like 3 months doing Atkins when it first came out, because that was like the big fad. And I have to tell you that is the one and only diet, other than my gastric bypass, that ever worked for me. And I think a lot of, CT55 made a comment too earlier. A lot of it has to do with what I would call comorbidity. There's a lot of different things that just play together. And when you're talking about sugar and you're talking about dieting and all those other kinds of things, there's a lot of other things that come into play too. How you're raised, how you're doing this, how you're doing that. I mean, it really truly is you have to break out of a mold. You've been molded that way your whole life, and now you got to break it. And I know it sucks, because it does. It sucks bad. But, like I said, for me, that was the first thing they tell you to do on a low carbohydrate diet. And they've kind of, I would say, altered this a little bit with the newer ones. But with Atkins, you were allowed no sugar whatsoever. Ever. Okay? And, and I'm talking about like where you would, turn the package around and said sugar. Even sugar from fruits. Okay? And that's where, that's where the health questions and stuff came into call there, because that is something that our body needs. But what they were doing back then, they were weighing, no pun intended here, what's the better option? Put these people on a low sugar thing for a period of time, or, let them keep going. Is their weight going to mess with them worse than going off sugar for a little while? And that's the thing. That's how our body reacts to it. Like when you're on Atkins, if you go off sugar for 2 weeks, you'll go into what they call ketosis, and you can actually get strips that you pee on, and then they'll tell you if you're in ketosis. If you're in ketosis, your body is no longer using sugar for energy. It's actually burning your fat. That's what that is telling you. So when that's happening, that's when you're losing the weight. But the bad thing is, the second you put anything at all sugar in your mouth, you got another 2 weeks. That's just the way your body metabolizes things. And that is a drawback of that diet. But the sugar is the main point there. And that's the other thing. A carbohydrate, when it sits in your body, what does it do? It turns into sugar. That's why you can't have it when you're on these diets. And again, guys, I've seen a lot of good comments coming across there, and I think a lot of it was really pointing to what I said a minute ago. A lot of it is just moderation. You can't, like I said, especially us addicts, we find something good. What do? I mean, we talked about this yesterday. I mean, we overdo it. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. For the majority of things in life, that's the truth. But in subjects like this, no, it's not. That's not. You want to moderate this. This isn't something you want to just completely go crazy with. And, CT55 made a comment when you were talking about the gun violence and stuff like that with kids attacking and all that. Yes, there most definitely is other factors there. I don't want anybody to miss.
Question.
Yes. I just wanted to clarify that, because he actually said that, and I don't think he meant anything like that. But what I'm saying is, I want to make sure other people weren't thinking that we're saying that, hey, we drank a cup of sugar, now I'm going to go buy a gun.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. With any study that's done ever, right? With any study that is done ever, they do, the gold standard is obviously a double blind. You get, kids that all have the same thing, and then, one group is going to get the excess amount of sugar while the other two groups don't. But the point is, you never know exactly what's happening when the patient isn't in the study. Even in places where, like my son I've said this before, my son works almost as a human guinea pig. He's done every study and got paid for it. And there are times where he has to live at the place, for a month period of time. But again, the lifestyle going up to that point, how the parents raised him, absolutely, definitely. But all they're saying is that for those individuals, if they're taking more sugar in, then the propensity is there, and that's really all we're talking about. And
Right.
as far as moderation goes, people, when we talk about sugars, the one thing that I really want to make sure everybody understands is we're talking about added sugars, right? We're not talking about the sugar that exists in food. You eat carrots, they got sugar in it. You know, you eat a tomato, it has sugar in it. You eat an apple, it has sugar in it. But the way those sugars are set up, they're not simple, right? These are complex. And what happens is it takes the body a long time to break it down, and they've got dietary fiber and all kinds of other cool stuff in there. Even the added sugar, if it's done in moderation, is just not an issue. The problem is they're not giving us a shot at doing things in moderation because they're adding it to everything. I mean, there's nothing left out there that doesn't have added sugar in it. So unless you're making it yourself, or unless you're eating raw, you know, you really have to start looking at exactly how much you're taking in.
I think
moderation is the key to everything.
Exactly, and I know I you know, watching the chat, everybody's saying the same. I mean, everybody agrees with that, you know, and I'm glad to see that because it definitely is a good thing to see. And I think what's happened, especially in today's society, is the fact that we've traded all that stuff for convenience. Honestly, I mean, it's just what it's for. That's what we're doing it for. You know,
boom.
Back in the day when there wasn't a 24-hour convenience store, when there wasn't anything like that, you had one of two choices. You got your butt out of bed and you were hungry and you went in the kitchen and made something, or you just went back to sleep. That were your two choices. Now it's I'm kind of feeling a little, I want this or I want that. Let's dial up DoorDash.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever, or Uber Eats or whatever you're doing, right?
Yeah.
You can get anything at the touch of a button, and our society is so close to the Jetsons. It really is. For all of us that are, old enough to even know what that is, right? You know what I mean? It's the old Star Trek thing where you push a button and there's your cup of coffee, or you push a button and there's your meal, that kind of thing. It is so close to that, guys. It really is. Other than, believe it or not, and because of my channel, I kind of researched this a little bit. They're working on teleportation stuff, so you can do that with food. It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy to think that, but that's actually, they're trying to get that done. And I don't put it past anything, really, that kind of stuff at the end of the day. But the convenience part, in my opinion, and I guess if you want to go with the convenience, you can go a little further with that too and just call it laziness. Because that's really what it amounts to. You're not, if you wake up in the middle of the night, it ain't about saving time like it is during the day. It's just because you're lazy. You don't want to, I mean, that's what it really boils down to. When I was a kid, my mom, if I wanted Dairy Queen, you know what I had to do? I had to walk to go get it. Not even kidding. I'm not kidding about that. We're not talking, across the street or around the block. We're talking 1.5 miles down the road one way. And, I think back on that and I thought, man, my mom was my gosh, I like to go off, But now I look back on it and it's like, you know what? That was not such a bad thing to have me do.
No, not at all. It's enlightened.
Yeah.
I saw two great comments. There was one from Cemetery 76 who said he's gone 40 days doing this already. 40 days of no sugars, no candies, no nothing. He said it's not easy, but he did it. 40 days is awesome. So obviously, this can be done. And the nature of everything we do here is it's so awesome to hear someone else did it because it does make you believe that you can. So I love that comment was out there. And CT555 always has great comments for real. But this one was talking about how most dietitians don't think that, carbs are a bad thing. And you're right. And there's definitely a difference between, simple and complex carbohydrates. And when you start to do a little bit of research on it, it really is a huge difference, right? There are carbs that are good for you. There really are. And you need them in your diet. If you don't have them, you're not getting up, you're not moving, you're not doing anything. They're the logs that fire the energy of your body, right? You need carbs if you're going to do anything, right?
I think Jacob said it earlier, Tommy. You were, doing your thing here at the beginning, but Jacob was talking about, fatty liver. Fatty liver is a big problem. Okay, and the only reason why I even know this is because I did go through the gastric bypass. That's why. There's two reasons why they make you lose weight before those surgeries. First, so you can prove that you're willing to put the work in to lose the weight, right?
Right.
The second thing is to reduce the size of your liver. Why? Because it sits in a position in your body that makes it very difficult to get the surgery done when it's big. And that's the whole reason. That's called fatty liver. And yes, most definitely sugar is a big culprit there for that.
Fructose, the number one, if any fructose that does not get broken down by the body ends up as fat in the liver. That is an absolute fact. That's why most, dietitians and everyone else, when they hear high fructose, you know what I mean? Like they're already freaking out because high fructose just means a fatty liver. It's exactly what it means. Yep. Anything your body isn't going to take care of. And it may sound like it's not a lot, from a 50-50 split to a 45-55. But when you're having that much each day, there's all of that extra, fructose, and it's all going to end up on your liver, and that's bad stuff.
It's crazy when you really, and I'm so glad we're doing this because it does open a lot of people's eyes to a whole lot of different things. And I know a lot of people don't associate this with addiction, but let me assure you, it is. This is so related to what we do here. It's not even funny. And I haven't talked to Tommy about this, but we may, after watching the chat in the past couple of live streams, I think maybe what we could do is, get a couple emails from a few people and possibly maybe do a panel one night and get people on here and talk and just have them there. So, that's just what it is. But anyway, but yeah. So, again, I think that's probably a good thing, because we can talk, have adult conversation, and really get to, help each other. So, and that's exactly what I think maybe this might be going towards in the future. It's not going to happen tomorrow. I'm just saying that, when we start getting lively chat like that, and people really talking about it and going into it and doing this and doing that, this is such a great topic that everybody can relate to, even if you're not an addict. And we can push forward from that and, help people, and I think this is helping. I think it's just talking about it helps. You know what I mean? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and I think that, like applesauce, people put that in the baked goods now instead of sugar.
Yep.
It's a substitute, and why not? I mean, if it tastes the same, why wouldn't you? We just don't think about it. And back to the kid thing with like Hawaiian Punch, I grew up on that stuff. Hawaiian Punch or Kool-Aid, right? My name was the Kool-Aid Man. That's what my channel was for almost 2 years, right? I was Blue Kool-Aid. That's what my name was. Well, for every liter that you make of like Kool-Aid, there's a cup of sugar in it. That is the recipe. There's 2 cups of sugar in each like batch of whatever. And it, because parents don't really think about that. Well, yeah, this is something I'm making at home. This is something that, it isn't coming out of a can. It doesn't mean it don't have the sugar in it. You just put it in there yourself. So, anyway. But the good thing about stuff like that, you can substitute with like Splenda or Sweet and Low or whatever you want to do there, right? You can kind of help control that. So, yeah. But
Joe Birdwell said that he is closing day 38 and calling it a night. Congratulations, Joe. Absolutely love you, brother. We really do. Really appreciate you being here day in, day out and fighting the good fight. You got to love it. You absolutely have to love it. So, Joe, you have a good night, man. Sleep well. I love the idea of the panel. I really do. When you start going through the comment section, you get a really good idea of the wealth and knowledge that so many of the people in this comment section have. I find that, the lifeboat crew is a group of thinkers. They really are, as opposed to other crews.
don't even, just don't. It's not even worth it. So,
yeah, I don't know exactly how we set that up, Mark, but you and I need to talk about it because, I mean, you know more about that whole concept. I mean, I guess like Johnny has done with Tincture Tuesday, where you kind of look like the beginning of the Brady Bunch.
Very similar to that.
I mean,
yeah.
Right. Or you got, what is it, Hollywood Squares? What was that one that, that kind of a setup?
It would be me just, sending out links. Really, honestly. I mean, I could do it. I could do it in 5 minutes if we're not worried about how it looks. I mean, that's really how it could be. And actually, believe it or not, Zoom has some really cool backgrounds now that fit that stuff. That will, how you're cut out sitting there in the cabin. It'll cut everybody out on its own and put them in like a seat or whatever. Makes it look like they're sitting there. It's pretty cool stuff when you have like a bunch of people in there. But yeah, I mean,
I like it.
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of great conversation in the chat. A lot of great conversation. Really has.
You know what? It's that way every night. I think that this subject matter, though, has been, it's again, when we start talking about drugs, you got you and I. We have a specific drug of choice. Although addiction is the same, we have our drug of choice, and then you got people who are on, cocaine or methamphetamines, and we tend to group up at least, mentally and socially by your drug of choice. It really does change a little bit about how your experience was. But sugar is it's pervasive. There's nobody on the boat, that has been immune to that. I mean, we just talked about it. It's in every single thing that you eat or drink across the board. Right. So every life has been touched by it. Every life has been affected by it. Before we get to the end of this, there's a couple of things I wanted to do. We need to continue our prayers for leisure. The last I heard, no one's heard from him in a day, but we know that the C-Math was, I believe the quote was, he was feeling like used kitty litter, which, I'm not sure that sounds like a really good thing. But so we need some thoughts and prayers for leisure and for Saigon's boy as well. I want to keep him in our thoughts and prayers.
Yep.
And
light always drowns out that darkness. Always.
Yeah. Well, no, it definitely does, people. We know that. So on that same subject matter, this morning's video for all of you that weighed in, the comments you all left on that are just, I mean, I've been doing this a hot minute now, and we're in the, I'm not kidding you, like 50 or 60,000 comment range in a really short period of time around here. But the comments this morning were absolutely beautiful, and to all of you that took the time to do that, and hold on, he said that he is here. Leisure.
Yeah, he just popped in. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Leisure. It's so good to see you, my brother. We have been concerned about you. Thank God. That's
awesome.
I
have to say something, here just a little bit on Leisure. That listen, guys, I've known Leisure now for going on 4 years, and he is the same person as he is now. That is not a fake anything with him at all. So when he says something, you might want to look at it, because he usually got some really good insight. And I'm telling you, when we got a fallen soldier like that, we got to send him all the light and love and the prayers that we can. We have to do that. That's how, in my opinion, it works. So, I can't say how much I appreciate Leisure. Like I said, he was, if not the first moderator I had on my channel, it might have been the second. So, I mean, he's just such a great guy. And to see him sick and struggling like that was horrible. Especially when he fell off the map for 7 months, Mr. Leisure 777. And I know you couldn't help it. I get it. I'm just saying.
Right.
Had me scared, man. Had me scared. But yeah, and to everybody else in there, I'm telling you guys, it's a great connection. And why it works is because it's a connection that's built on love. It really is. It's not anything other than. It's a connection that's being built on trying to help each other. And those are really hard bonds to kind of sever.
I also saw Sarah normally. isn't joining us tonight. She's new to the lifeboat, but already leaving really fantastic comments on. We sort of had a back and forth about some stuff this morning, and she just was. This is a subject she knows a lot about. It was it's awesome to have people that show up and immediately sort of fall right into exactly what we're doing. And she's definitely very quickly became a valued member of the crew. Really appreciate her. And Niall, what is Niall's last name?
Parkinson's.
There you go. Niall Parkinson, great to see you again. When we were really hauling along and I had mentioned Valium, I saw that he had left a comment that was something that his mother was prescribed back in the day. And he talked about how, he and his sister basically, needed to fend for themselves to get home from school because mom slept around the clock. And he did a little research based on, his experience. Man, I'm sorry to hear that, but
he had a lot.
How much it means to me that
he had a lot of insight.
Stuff like that.
A lot of insight tonight. He really did. Really did.
Yeah. So. Yeah. From day one, he's been a cat that is just again. We're really blessed with the people that come here and share and just. Every time somebody comes here and is open and honest and just talks about their life experiences, this boat gets stronger. And that's the dream of what we do, people. It really is. I want to thank everybody. Sarah, good to see you. Glad you're still here. And Niall, hopefully you catch this on a repeat because I don't know whether or not I got that out in time for you to see it. But just a great guy. He's from the Emerald Isle. So it's part of our international crew, which is always exciting. So people, again, to all of you this morning that weighed in, the hat stays. So does the word captain. I love you people. I really do. Between now and tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock when we do this again, what we'd like you to do is kind of reach out there and try to save somebody because it is what we do here. I am Captain Tommy Scoville. On the other side of the glass is my partner,
Mark Wages.
Bless.